But there was an inauguration of the mayor earlier, I forget which time, must have been Giuliani, and he gave a talk, and it was apparently freezing cold, and then Alan Hevesy, who was being installed as the, maybe the second time as the controller, stood up and said, "It's very cold. If you want a copy of my speech, call my office," and he sat down. And I think people really appreciated that. I'm not going to do that. It's not that cold here. I thought I'd talk for an hour and a half. If anybody has any. Anyway, seriously, I'm glad that I've been asked to give a report on Ridgewood, because the other issue, is this true, that you're supposed to be addressing tonight, is how to get rid of feral cats out of backyards. You throw your old shoes out the bedroom window. It's the only ways I know how to do it. Anyways, I've got some good news about Ridgewood. It starts with something that you deserve credit for working hard to make happen, and that is landmarking. And I want you to know that the city's Landmark Preservation Commission is set to vote on designing a Ridgewood North Historic District on September 15th. They are meeting then, and I'm told that will be very popular. They will also hold a hearing at that same meeting on creating an even larger Ridgewood South District. So those of you that want landmarking, I think you're going to get what you want. Over the past 7 years, the Landmarks Commission has created more historic districts outside of Manhattan than any administration, I'm told, since 1965. And Ridgewood distinctive Matthews Flats really does deserve recognition, I think. So Ridgewood's history needs to be preserved and celebrated, and these landmark decisions, we think, will go a long ways towards doing that, and will call attention to what a truly great community this is. The second thing I wanted to mention is where we are today, IS 93, and give you some good news about education. If you didn't read the papers the other day, these students here have made huge progress in the last few years. This year's test scores show that they are outperforming city students throughout the rest of the city. 3 years ago, just over 40% of students at IS 93 were at or above grade level in English. Today, more than 70% are. I would say, but what about math? Okay, 3 years ago, just over half were performing at grade level in math. Today, nearly 82% are, so they deserve progress all across the city, and the latest evidence was the math scores the other day. Why? I think it's because we're investing in teachers, setting standards, holding everyone in the system accountable, and you see results. And if you want to know about the future of America, the future of New York, it is in public education. We just have to make sure that our kids get the kind of education they're going to need to participate in the great American dream. And for too long, the school system just wasn't doing that. And now, because the teachers and the principals and the parents and the students and the assistant principals and the custodians and the school safety officers and the taxpayer are all working together, it really is amazing what the school system has done. We are catching up. The city is catching up to the state, and big cities never catch up to the state because big cities have more people that have low income. They have more people who are immigrants, and more special ed kids typically live in cities than live in the suburbs. And yet the city's test scores are closing in on what the state is without us. And also, we've always had a problem that minorities have not done anywhere near as well in our school system. And I'm happy to say that we've eliminated something from 50 and 60%, depending on how you measure it, of the gap between minorities and everybody else. And we're going in the right direction. So I think our school reform systems are working. We're working with Assemblywoman Kathy Nolan and others in Albany to improve and reauthorize the law that makes all of this possible, and hopefully we will get that done. Third, let me just say talk about one other issue before I have to go, and that is public safety. As everybody knows, when the economy slows down or goes into a recession, crime goes up. Except that that's what everybody knows, but it doesn't have to be true. And I just tell you what's happening in this city. We are going in the other direction. Crime is going down at the same time, sadly, the economy is. Good news on the crime, bad news on the economy. But here in the 104th precinct, crime is down 9.4% this year compared to last. Crime here is down 43% over the last 8 years, and it continues to come down in all our communities. We really stand a good chance. We're only 5 months through the year, but we stand a good chance of setting another record for low crime throughout all of this city. It is just, it's so counterintuitive, but it turns out that if you keep working hard and everybody works together, you don't have to suffer the conventional wisdom. Yes, people are getting hurt. Some people are losing their jobs and their houses and have to worry about how they pay for medical care. But I think what's happened in this city is we've pulled together and we've tried to find programs that will help people. And so if you know somebody who is in danger of losing their house or losing their job or can't get medical care, just call 311 and ask. You'll be surprised. We have a whole bunch of volunteers who can stand by and give counseling. A small business, if you know somebody that's in trouble in a small business, we have programs where people who are experts will give small business owners counseling. The city has matching funds for training programs. There are angel funds, people who will loan to small businesses that we can get people in touch with. We just don't have to sit back and say, well, that's just the way it is. Any more than we sat back and said that's just the way it is on education or crime. We can do some things, and we are placing a lot of people in jobs today. Not as many as getting laid off. The city can't solve the national or international economic problem, but we can do things for small businesses which employ half of the people that work in the city. We can do things for people that get in trouble with their mortgage. The city's not going to pay your mortgage. There are ways that you can negotiate. The city can give you some good idea of your rights. So good schools and safe streets and really do lead to a quality of life and making neighborhoods attractive to people. And that's what we have to do. We have to make sure that people want to move to the city and tourists want to come here. The good news with tourism is while the economy is slowed down worldwide, and tourists that come here aren't spending as much money per person as they used to, total tourism is only down, we're estimating something like 4 or 5%. And if you talk to a lot of the museums, their attendance is flat to even up. So that's very good news, because when the economy improves, we want to make sure those people come here and stay in our hotels and eat in our restaurants and buy in our stores. That's the ways that's where the tax revenue comes from. And it says that we have a future. And we're trying to invest all through the city. I just came from Brooklyn Bridge Park, which was having a psychedelic sunset, except of course it was hard to see the sun. It was raining or drizzling. And I pointed out that back in the old days, I even had a Nehru jacket. Does anybody remember Nehru jackets? Back in the 60s, there aren't that many. But the city, that's going to be a great part. And parks throughout the city, we are expanding and growing, and it's really amazing what's going on. So we just got to keep it going. We're trying to create jobs. We're trying to make the investments. Queens Plaza is not that far from here. We put $25 million into that. That'll create a preserve 1,000, 1,300 jobs, create another central business district. We've got to keep making the kinds of investments that we stopped making back in the 70s. And we're not going to do that. We are going to keep the streets safe. We are going to keep improving the schools. We are going to keep what I would argue is the best municipal workforce any place, here and working. Is it going to be tough? Yeah, sure it's going to be tough. Our tax revenues next year will be something like $5 billion lower than they were last year because of the slowdown in the economy and Wall Street's not making any money. But nevertheless, we started cutting our expenses a couple of years ago. We've cut $3 billion out of our expenses. We've raised some taxes. Unfortunately, we just have to do that if we're going to pay our police and pay our teachers and everything. But we will get through this. And I've always thought that New York has a strength that no other place has. New York's going to come back. If you like what's in New York, the only place you can get it is in New York. And that's not true of a lot of other cities. There are great cities out there, but they have competition for the same kinds of things. New York is different. New York has a vitality and a diversity and a pizzazz and a desire to make things happen that just doesn't exist elsewhere.